Begin with a reading. It's a reading that was written by the Reverend Jack Mendelson, a very prominent Unitarian Universalist minister. He wrote it in 1959, and it's entitled, "Who is a Minister?" Essentially, he writes, a minister is a person who, by the deliberate deed of a congregation, is given the time, the freedom, and the sustenance to study, speak, and act on the religious and ethical issues of life, and to help make more intelligible and inspiring to those who cannot claim such time and freedom the spiritual resources available to him or her. A minister of liberal religion is a person never completely satisfied or satisfiable, never completely adjusted or adjustable, who walks in two worlds, one of the things as they are, the other of things as they ought to be, and loves them both. The minister has a pincushion coat and an elastic heart, and sits with the happy and sad in a chaotic pattern of laugh, cry, laugh, cry. Ministers know that the first time their laughter is false or their tears make believe, their days as a real minister are over. The liberal minister continuously runs out of time, out of wisdom, out of ability, out of courage, out of money. He or she is hurtable, but must be able to accept people where they are and go on from there. Ministers never try to exercise influence nor possess. And ministers who are worth their salt know all this and are still thankful every day of their lives for the privilege of being who they are. The future of liberal religious movement, he writes, is almost totally dependent on two factors: great congregations, whether large or small, and skilled, dedicated ministers. The strangest feature of their relationship is that they create each other. This Jack Mendelson reading describes poetically the dynamics of ministry and of being a minister. His words speak eloquently to the daily demands, the push and the pull, the unyielding desire to do better, to be better, and the natural depletion of time and talent. This morning I will speak about my upcoming sabbatical with a certain hesitancy. As a minister who is privileged to have a glimpse into many of your lives, I know only too well that there are many people in this congregation who work longer hours than I do, who have more stress in their lives, and who, quite frankly, are more deserving of a sabbatical than I am. Does this mean I will forego my sabbatical? No. It is, rather, to be humbly grateful that I will have this opportunity starting next August. I'm now completing my 5th year as the minister of this remarkable congregation, and you are a remarkable congregation. You know that, don't you? I hope you do. My ministerial agreement with you says that I earn 1 month of sabbatical leave for you each year, 1 month of sabbatical leave for each year I serve as your minister, and that the sabbatical can be taken after year 4. I was scheduled to go on sabbatical last fall, but I asked the Board of Trustees to delay that because this first year in this incredible new space was a critical year of transition, and I believed it was important for me to be here, and it has been an amazing year. I have a colleague who says that for ministers, a sabbatical is composed of the 5 R's: an opportunity for rest, reflection, research, retooling, and eventually re-entry into the congregation. Rest. This may be confusing to some, thinking that ministers do rest, and we do. I have time off during part of the summer, and I have 1 day off a week. It's important to understand, though, that the crises in congregational life do not always happen on schedule, and so rest is sometimes compromised. Last summer, while I was on vacation, I was also in contact with an Emerson family during a life-threatening hospitalization of a family member. There's nothing wrong with that. It is the nature of ministry to meet life where and when it happens. Ministers, as I hope you will appreciate, are intimately connected to our work and those we serve. A colleague once told me that it took 2 to 3 months before he felt free from the weekly, daily, hourly thinking, planning, and even worrying about the congregation. I get that. A sabbatical provides the time to separate and to genuinely rest. The second R of sabbaticals is reflection. In my ministry, I spend a great deal of time reflecting on what it means to be in right relationship with the congregation. I believe a sabbatical is a chance to go deeper. Without having the daily demands of a congregation to serve, a sabbatical is an opportunity to deeply reflect and to reimagine how I do what I love and how I am best able to meet the needs of this thriving congregation. The third R of sabbaticals is research. It is more than reading another book. It's a chance to engage in an area of interest in greater depth than is possible in the day-to-day and week-to-week demands of serving a congregation. Retooling, the fourth R, means that the minister has the chance to work on specific areas of ministry. Retooling for most means taking a class and improving a ministerial skill. I think, as most of you know, I no longer seek out classes to take. I instead, for the 5 years that I have been here, have found a strong preference for finding some life-provoking activity. And yes, they have been life-provoking activities, if you recall the things I've done. To immerse myself in and to see what life has to teach me. And then I share what I find with the congregation. The final R is reentry. When I first heard this, it sounded like a spacecraft returning to Earth. Perhaps that is what it intends to convey. After I've been floating around in space for about 5 months, it will be time to come back to Earth, or at least to Emerson. After further reading, though, I now believe that reentry also means something much more profound. Reentry is the intentional reintegration of the minister with the congregation. It means meeting the congregation again. It means listening with fresh ears to what excites you and what concerns you. Reentry means recovenanting with you about our relationship, recovenanting with individuals, with groups, and probably most importantly, recovenanting with leadership. This, then, is how I will frame my sabbatical, a time of rest, reflection, research, provoking life at its core and seeing what it has to teach me, and finally, re-entry. For the past year, I've wondered, what will the congregation expect of me when I return from my sabbatical? Expectations are dangerous animals. Some ministers are reluctant to share what they will do on their sabbaticals because it might create some enormous expectation. After his sabbatical, his sermons should be more inspiring. After a sabbatical, he should be better at this, better at that. It is exactly those kinds of expectations that I hope to avoid. Maybe a sabbatical is more like a tune-up. A sabbatical is to keep the old machine, that would be me, running at its best. But it is not a major overhaul. Some of you may have been hoping for the overhaul. Up to this point, I've spoken about sabbaticals from the minister's perspective. It does seem that sabbaticals are all about the minister. But a sabbatical can be just as energizing, just as invigorating for a congregation as well. Here's what I mean. When a minister is part of a congregation's life, there is a tendency by some, perhaps many, to defer to the minister on important issues or to assume that the minister will take care of things. During a sabbatical, this doesn't happen. My absence for 5 months will mean that you will look to yourselves for inspiration and to solve problems. Here at Emerson, my ministry has focused on how we treat one another. And if I have served you well, you will discover that you can do this important work without me for 5 months. Operating without the minister for a brief time is immensely important for a congregation. It is not to diminish the role of the minister, but it is important to know that the congregation is not utterly dependent on him or her. A sabbatical then is not just for the minister. It is also an opportunity for the congregation to reaffirm its ability to manage its own affairs in a meaningful way. It was only a week ago, in a conversation with Ginger White and the Committee on Healthy Ministries, that I realized there is a third win in my sabbatical. I've already suggested that a sabbatical is a time for a minister to go deeper, to do unique and creative work while away. It is my heartfelt desire that during my sabbatical, each member of Emerson will take the time to do that as well. The longer I'm in ministry, I increasingly recognize how we are most often pushed and pulled by life's circumstances. Here then is my challenge to you. Pick one aspect of life that is a personal or spiritual growth area for you. Perhaps it is leading a simpler life, a more compassionate life, a more authentic life. And spend 5 months exploring that topic in depth, just for yourself. This is the work I will be doing, and nothing would delight me more than to know that you are joining me in this important ministry. Some have asked, where will you go and what will you do on your sabbatical? I'm absolutely delighted to say that I will be spending my sabbatical at the Quaker Center for Peace and International Understanding in Mexico City, where they can house up to 35 guests. It is called Casa de los Amigos, or Friend's House, if you know the Quaker tradition. Many of you know my love of Spanish language and culture, and I look forward to this immersion experience. If you look at the website for Casa de los Amigos, you will see that they have programs for economic justice and immigration, and I look forward to immersing myself in these areas as well. And yet, perhaps most important of all, for me, are the Quaker values that I will be immersed in. Values such as simplicity, peace, integrity, community, equality, and unity with nature. These are the programs they create for the people who are staying at Casa de los Amigos, and I hope to be an integral part of that. I will also reach out to Unitarian Universalist congregations in Mexico. Perhaps one of the challenges for me will be to take time to rest and relax. I know myself. I love being active, and so I will need to carve out some time to spend a few days in a retreat setting while there. So you may be wondering, well, Jeff, who is going to be in the pulpit? And who will handle our pastoral needs while you're on sabbatical? I hope I have answers that will reassure you. I'm very pleased that 3 of my colleagues have agreed to speak at Emerson once a month during my sabbatical. These 3 Unitarian Universalist ministers have spoken at Emerson previously, so they are not strangers to you. And you are not strangers to them. They are the Reverend Marty Keller, the Reverend Roy Reynolds, and the Reverend Duncan Teague. and I'm pleased at the diversity they bring. The Sunday Services Committee, as you know, does a phenomenal job. Who was here for last Sunday service on dance? Oh my, oh my. I didn't want to burden them with planning 15 additional Sunday services while I'm on sabbatical. And so I have trained new Sunday service leaders who will interface with our 3 guest ministers. Will Vicki Eklund, Leslie McLean, and Don Sabo please stand and remain standing? I also recruited 3 storytellers to lead the story for all ages, one of my wonderful joys every Sunday morning. Would Beth Klein, Misty Holm, and Jillian Scow please stand and remain standing? Regarding pastoral needs, we have a dynamic pastoral care team now. Again, they were just installed earlier in the fall. But they're there not just for the sabbatical, but because the pastoral care team is a valuable resource for a growing and thriving congregation. As I hope you know, the pastoral care team is in place to hear what is on your hearts. Would the members of the pastoral care team please stand and remain standing? They will be the first to tell you that they are not trained clergy. And so I'm pleased to report that the Reverend Marty Keller will be on call for pastoral emergencies that are beyond the scope of the pastoral care team. You are in good hands. You're still standing. Overseeing all of these efforts is a sabbatical committee that has been meeting and will continue to meet during my sabbatical. Would the sabbatical committee please stand? Linda Sabo, Rebecca Edwards, Scott Dobler, Dick Kugelman, Leona Thompson, and Dave Schimmel and Rhonda Lawrence will be ex officio. If you have any concerns about any aspect of my sabbatical, please reach out to the sabbatical committee. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Committee on Healthy Ministries. Would you please stand and remain standing? There's 7 of you. So this is an amazing group of people that have done the work, even including today's sermon reflections, of inviting you to participate in a conversation about what the sabbatical means to you and bringing any concerns you might have to Emerson before I actually depart. It'll be a few months. So I want you to know you are in good hands as I go on sabbatical. A lot of good preparatory work has been done. Please thank these people. You may now be seated. Two final resources. The Sabbatical Committee is also producing a brochure that will be distributed in a month or so, and it will be available to newcomers who may be asking, and where is your minister? We will also be posting a video from me on Emerson's website to introduce myself to Emerson visitors. There's one final piece of information I have to share. Sadly, Carol will not be going with me to Mexico City, but she and I will be in daily contact. If you ask Carol how my sabbatical is going, she will tell you, fine. And if I ask her, how's Emerson doing? She will say, fine. And perhaps you may want to ask Carol how she's doing. That would be a nice thing because she's here this morning as well. She's my lifeline. Thank you, Carol. I believe in my heart that this sabbatical is win-win-win. I will have a unique opportunity to further immerse myself in Spanish language and culture, in the Quaker values that speak to my heart, and to areas of ministry and justice that engage my spirit. Emerson, too, will have a unique opportunity, and fully believing that no minister is indispensable, it will delight me to no end to know that you are thriving in my absence. The third win is where I truly wish to engage you. As much as I love the institution, ministry for me is about changing lives, my own and others. We are each on a journey, and we each have choices to make. Nothing would delight me more than to return from my sabbatical and hear from you about how you use this time to deepen some spiritual dimension of your life. Personal change and growth is what I live for, and I hope that my sabbatical can be that for you as well. May it be so.